know
morning.
you've been going from studio to studio. I'm just going to fill you in on James Murray telling me that it was fine that they were £4.2 billion in surplus and they didn't tell anyone because this is the way that budgets are planned out and she can raise taxes if she wants to. And there was then a to and fro about whether or not there was a 20 billion black hole. Well, that's what officials briefed to the media. So can we just clear this up? Because you're the leader of the opposition. Were you given the impression that there was a 20 billion black hole in Britain's finances on November the 4th?
It was a big press conference, the Cheerios briefing, you may remember. I was giving a speech that day and I had to stop what I was doing to watch it. And I just thought, what on earth was that? Why is she doing this? She knew exactly what she was doing. She was trying to pitch roll higher taxes. She was trying to send a signal to the markets. This is why we have written a letter to the Financial Conduct Authority. We think there may have been some market abuse. But the bottom line, Camilla, is that she told a lie. She said that there wasn't any money. The OBR said that there was and has shown evidence that they had told her that. She wanted to raise money for welfare. And that's what she did. Okay. This was a bung for benefits.
On this FCA investigation that you've recommended along with Mel Stride, Dan Hodges has pointed out in the Mail on Sunday that if you are found to have misled the markets, criminal sanctions for insider dealing and market manipulation can incur custodial sentences of up to 10 years and unlimited fines. I mean, it sounds improbable, the idea of a chancellor going to jail about this.
The thing is, if a CEO had behaved like this before they gave an annual report, that's what would be happening. Just coming out, saying things to try and get the bond markets to treat you a little bit more nicely so you can find money for welfare benefits. That is absolutely wrong. But the worst thing is that she's raised taxes now on a lot of working people who are now paying for benefits when they're struggling themselves. Telegraph today talks about £18,000 worse off, the families that are not on benefits. The average family that she's given money to is getting an extra £5,000. That's a lot of money.
Yes.
500,000 families, Rachel Reeves has given an extra £5,000. We think that's wrong, and that's why we would reverse the cap.
We'll get on to welfare in just a minute, because I do want to ask you about your own plans to slash welfare. But on the Chancellor and now the PM, the revelation on the front of the Sunday Tell, he also knew that we were £4.2 billion in surplus. So should they both go?
If he knew, as I tweeted this morning, then yes, he is just as implicated. Because let's remember,
you can't really, this is the trouble. You can say all this, it's rhetoric. You can't really do anything about it. It's the same with Nigel Farage saying, there could be an early general election in 2027. What levers can either of you pull? Well,
what we can do is what Mel Stride, the Shadow Chancellor, has done today. Ask that the Financial Conduct Authority investigate. They may find that we're correct. They may decide that maybe they had just cause. But what I think is really awful is that a lot of people heard what they said. There were some people who drew down their pension because they were worried about what was going to happen. Some people left the country, I'm hearing, because of the talk about the exit tax. Others were fixing their mortgages because they thought it was going to be, so terrible. She came out there, she held that press conference telling everyone that she was going to raise taxes, changed her mind 3 days later, and is now creating, just a gigantic welfare state, which we cannot afford.
All right, well,
hello, I'm Bev Turner. Now, it can feel like the money in our bank accounts at the moment does not keep up with the cost of living. And maybe there's a solution. I'm here today with the CEO of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. Cameron, what is TallyMoney?
Well, Bev, with TallyMoney, you get a current account and a debit card, but instead of pounds, you use milligrams of gold as your everyday money.
So why gold?
Gold traditionally is a great store of value. It has, on average, gone up at over 11% per annum for the last 25 years against the pound. It's tripled in value in the last decade. And in the last 2 years alone, it's increased by 50% against the pound. Banks' savings products just can't compete with that level of growth.
But this isn't just about gold. This is about a currency that you guys have created at TallyMoney. Explain it to me as though I'm an idiot.
So, look, people need to be able to hold their earnings and build their savings in a money that retains its value and remains in their legal control and remains theirs to access, away from government control.
Great. You had me at not exposed to government control.
You should feel safe and happy with your money. You should have peace of mind the more money you see in your bank balance, and that's the type of thing we're trying to deliver and give people choice in the type of money they get to use every day.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Cameron. Thank you.
Let's get on to that, because the criticism of the Tories in all this will be as follows, right? It's all very well, you're now talking about tax cuts. You put up taxes 20 different times when you were in office. It was a big tax and spend administration. You actually left a tax burden of 36.1% when Rishi Sunak left office. Meanwhile, welfare, again, it went up under the Conservatives. If you now look at this welfare bill scheduled to go up by 70 billion by the end of Parliament, so it's going to be at 403 billion pounds. James Murray couldn't confirm or deny that, but that's the truth of the statistics. You saying that you're going to cut, 27 billion? No, 23 billion off welfare. It's not even going to touch the sides. You're going to have to go far further than that commitment.
So let me first of all start by saying I'm not here to say that everything we did in government was perfect. It absolutely
let's hope not,
was
because
not.
The audience will be throwing things at the telly if you say that.
We made mistakes. That's the difference between us and Labour, is that I can stand up and say that previous Conservative governments made mistakes. We've got to own up to that. Here are some of the mistakes we made. We put up taxes too high, and here's how we're going to fix it. That is my job. I can't just say, oh, well, we made mistakes, so, let's just cry into our soup. There are people out there who need solutions. And you're right. What we're talking about is 47 billion pounds. So we're not rushing out with lots of
47 billion pounds
in terms of savings. It's
yes.
The 23 billion comes from welfare.
I know,
it's actually
but
47 billion pounds.
Do you agree with me now that 23 billion isn't enough? Even Jeremy Hunt, who seems to have become more right-wing since he left the Treasury, has suggested that if you restore working age benefits back to what they were pre-pandemic, you'll automatically save 47 billion.
Yes, that's
so
what
I'm saying, pardon the pun, you're being too conservative with your welfare cuts.
Well, that 47 billion is what I'm talking about. We're starting in a sensible place. Let's go back to 2019 levels. But remember, Camilla, we are the only party that is doing this. Labour, Lib Dems, Reform, SNP, Greens, Plaid, they all wanted that two-child benefit cap lifted. Okay. All of them did. So there's only one party that's talking about living within our means.
In Reform's defence, and they've issued a briefing paper about this, they are saying that they want to encourage the birth rate among British citizens. We agree, don't we? We're in a population crisis. Immigrants are having a lot of children. Indigenous Brits, if we can call them that, aren't. So Farage is saying we want to scrap the cap if, and these are the qualifications, both parents are working, both are British citizens. Now, that caveats that policy somewhat, doesn't it?
Do you know what? It may caveat some bits of the policy, but it doesn't address the real issue, which is that we are not growing as an economy. We need growth policies. We didn't see that in the budget. Reform are now caveating this now because they didn't realise what they'd announced previously. And this is what we always get with them. They say stuff and then they get a realisation that it doesn't work that way. And then they scrabble to try and fix it. We had that cap in place for a good reason.
I know,
a lot of people make decisions not to have more children that they can't afford. They should not then be paying for other people to have those children.
But then you need to find some kind of magic formula. I asked my brilliant producer, Elizabeth, who does a lot of the research for this show, to find out what the growth rate was in the post-war period, OK? National Institute of Economic and Social Research, it estimated that growth fell from 3.4% a year in the post-war period up to 1973, OK? Then it was up to 2.3% until the 2008 financial crisis. It's averaged 1.2% since. So growth has been sclerotic, anaemic, whatever word you want to choose, under the Tories as it has under Labour. Liz Truss tries to do something about this and the budget blows up in her face. So why will you be any different?
Because we are starting from a principle of balancing the books. The reason why that mini budget went wrong is because it had £150 billion of spending on people's energy bills without explaining how we'd pay for it. It was too much spending, not enough when we should have been cutting spending. This is the same thing Labour is doing. A lot of people think that budget didn't work because of tax cuts. It was too much spending. We are saying now, we have our golden economic rule. We're going to make savings. We use the savings to pay down the deficit and tax cuts. We balance the books.
You're not going to be able to afford to scrap stamp duty now, are you? If you got into power in 3 to 4 years' time,
yes, we
totally
can.
Unaffordable.
Yes, we can. And it is because stamp duty like many other taxes, actually depresses growth. People aren't buying houses. The housing market is completely gummed up. People aren't buying houses. They're not downsizing. And you know, that means a lot of first starts, you know, people starting out their first family want their first home. Sorry, not their first family, get their first home.
Yes.
They're just not buying.
Yeah.
You scrap stamp duty, there are more jobs. People,
Yeah, but it's expensive. How much does it cost to scrap stamp duty?
Well, we had a cautious estimate, you know, about 10 billion. That is cautious. I honestly believe that it won't cost that much, but we're starting with a cautious estimate because we are responsible.
Okay.
Stamp duty will help grow the economy. People hire decorators, they have housing extensions, or they start buying things in the shops. We need to stimulate growth. There are other taxes, like what they're doing on family farms, genuinely going to disrupt farming in our country.
I suppose I'm making the overall point.
You know, those sorts of things that they brought in.
I'm making the overall point that you're making the point that this budget has been sort of economy ruining and ruinous and will continue to be ruinous. We've got working families now, according to the Sunday Express and that CSJ report, having to earn 71 grand in order to compete with a family on benefits.
Yes, that's crazy.
Whoever gets in next time is going to inherit one hell of a mess.
Yes.
And therefore you're all going to have to downgrade your own plans to deal with the inheritance that you then get. But just drop that for a second because we're running out of time here. And I do want to ask you about Kevin Hollingwake's tweet. This guy is your chairman. You're facing the fight of your life next May and then at the next general election. Why have you got a chairman that is tweeting ridiculous things likening reform to the Nazis?
Kevin Hollingwake is a fantastic chairman. 100% back him. I thought it was funny. Maybe not other people would have found it funny. He didn't call anybody Nazis. Reform needs to stop saying this. The implication is that they don't pay attention to a lot of the things they say.
Well, I saw Fulham FC last night on the telly. They've got a black shirt with a gold badge.
Yeah, but they're not a political party.
Nazis?
They're not a political party, and nobody called them Nazis. This is a lot of crybaby behaviour, which we need to stop.
Well, do you think reform is in any way Nazi adjacent?
No. But if someone does something, we can say, well, this has happened in history. Look at that. It's Twitter. He made a joke. People might not find it funny. But right now, what's really important is what's happening to all those people out there who are worried about their money.
Why is Hollingwake tweeting such nonsense?
Because it's Twitter. People put memes, people make jokes.
Did you sanction him? Did you say anything to him? Kevin, actually, please don't do this.
No, absolutely not. I thought it was funny. I stand by him. Kevin Hollingwake is one of the people who's helping me do a better job. So I won't have a single word said against him. He's a great
says
chairman.
You didn't forensically analyse her budget. You were just making personal barbs.
That's not true. She clearly wasn't listening. I spent 20 minutes talking about how growth was down, all of the mistakes she made, how she needed to cut spending. But
were you a bit too nasty?
No, I was doing my job. She had a swipe at me at the last budget. She doesn't remember that. They called... Do you remember when they were calling Liz Truss a lettuce? They didn't think that was nasty, did they?
No,
these are people who are hypocrites.
Well, politics is quite nasty.
Yes,
and on that subject...
We will give as good as we get.
All right, final question as well, because The Guardian has been poring over Nigel Farage's schoolboy days and suggested that he was both an anti-Semite and in some way racist. Do you think he's racist?
Well, I think that these are things that happened long before I was born. He's got questions to answer.
Does something you say as a teenager make you racist? You must have been subject to some pretty choice
if you haven't
words
changed,
in the 1980s.
If you haven't changed, and I think the question is, has he changed or not? And I think that is a legitimate question. People will ask about your past. People ask about all sorts of stuff that happened long before I was an MP. And when it doesn't matter, or when I can say, it doesn't matter, I've changed. I thought it was a joke. I played this prank and so on, but I can explain that. He needs to explain himself. It's not my job to defend him. He's a big boy. He can go out and defend himself.
I know, but I think have a greater perspective than most on it because you're a black woman. But I think he's a racist.
Well, I think that the gentleman who said that Nigel Farage tormented him throughout the time that he was in school and that really impacted his life, he should probably apologise for that at the very least. I think he should apologise for that.